What's up, you filthy heretics? How are you doing? My name is Asmogan, and today we'll be talking about the clankers of the Red Wastes, the toaster appreciators of the galaxy, and the only sub-faction of the Imperium weirder than the Inquisition. Yes, indeed I am referencing the Mechanicus of Mars. So without further ado, let's get on with the lore dump. Now, before we get into this lore dump, allow me to... What's that? Shit! What the fuck?
Sorry about the absence. Had to clear up some problems.
Damn, that voice is monotone gold. That leads me to what I was saying. Make sure to check out Nathan X2000. The man doesn't do lore, yet, but makes fantastically entertaining commentary videos made in the same animation vein as this series. Anywho, back to the main topic at hand, the Mechanicus of Mars. The Mechanicus of Mars, also known as the Cult Mechanicus, or most commonly as the Adeptus Mechanicus, are a sub-faction of the Imperium of Man. Technically, their entire society is made up of technophiles who are obsessed with technology to a literal religious degree, but I'm getting a wee bit ahead of myself. Allow me to properly outline their start before I tell you their current state, shall we? Long before the modern paradigm of the 41st millennium, humanity reigned on high in the galaxy as an immensely powerful race. We stood high above all others and had advanced so far that we entrusted our military might to an artificial race of our own making, known as the Men of Iron. Powerful automatons and AI soldiers, which stood as a mighty bulwark against alien threats. However, this went the way of Skynet and backfired immensely. The Men of Iron turned against humanity, and we were forced to subdue our own creations, which somehow we did. If I trusted the modern writing team at GW, I'd say they ought to really drop a hint or two somewhere as to how, but hey, details! Anywho, as you all should know by now, having watched this whole series because you have watched it, humanity rebounded after their victory against the Men of Iron, and unfortunately, not too long after the rebound, the Eldari hate-fucked Slanesh into existence. This led to the destabilization of the warp, and all faster-than-light travel was completely undone. Therefore, the highly mutually dependent human race fell into utter bedlam, as all communication was killed alongside our ability to fast travel. We were alone, isolated, in the dark. Anywho, one such world amongst the throng, which had been fully colonized and turned into a bustling world in its own right, was Mars. Mars' human population at the time, like most human civilizations, as a result of being cut off and isolated from the greater whole, burned in the fires of civil unrest and warring amongst the populace. However, the cult of Mechanicus formulated during this time and quickly established itself as the dominant force on the planet. Mars, long before the Emperor had even unified Terra, became a united society under a single banner. It's at this time I'll give you a very brief synopsis of the Cult Mechanicus and its religious doctrine. The Cult Mechanicus, the theology and philosophy of the Adeptus Mechanicus, states that knowledge itself is a manifestation of pure divinity in the universe, and the culmination of this knowledge is believed to be manifested in the almighty and omnipotent Machine God. Machine God is believed to be found and embedded in all things that would be defined as a machine. It represents the will of said machine. If your car fails to start in the morning, it is because the Machine God deemed it not to be. If your computer ignites on fire... well, let's be honest, the Machine God probably found your private furry folder and attempted digital spiritual seppuku. Regardless, Machine God, very important, 10 out of 10 would define again. So yeah, the Mechanicum pray to the Omnissiah, as the Machine God is called by the Cult Mechanicus, and revere it so that it continues to support them and aid humanity. Now, this being 40K, we can't just have a reasonable level of prayer and worship being applied here. That would in and itself be heresy to the setting. So, Asmogan, what's the crazy shit? Where does this get turned up to 11? Well, my dear heretics, get your incense and surgery saws out, cause we're cutting right through the fat on this one. The Mechanicus, as a way of becoming closer to their god as well as shedding off what they define as weakness, saw off limbs and transplant out organs, and replace them with mechanical components. Yep, they Deus Ex Human Revolution themselves, and shred off as much as they possibly can. They have wet dreams about becoming microwaves and blenders. Now that the religious breakdown is done, back to the timeline. The cult Mechanicus, under the command of the Fabricator General, ruled Mars for a few centuries and expanded their domain and religion to other worlds, and turned them into Forge worlds. Those will get a dedicated entry later. However, without the warp, these expansions were limited to the Segmentum Solar, the large region of space directly around Terra. In fact, the Mechanicum made excursions to Terra itself, and fought with the techno-barbarian states in order to acquire ancient technologies, which the barbarians were in possession of. Obvious as it is to state, the Mechanicus did not conquer Earth despite these campaigns, and the Mechanicus held hostilities for the Terrans until the late 30th millennium, when the Emperor of Mankind successfully unified Terra under his rule. The Emperor came to Mars in all his golden glory, and was received with great reverence by the tech priests, many declaring him the Omnissiah in human flesh. Yeah, I mean, if anyone's going to be declared a religious deity, it would be the 9-foot-tall, golden-armored psychic, wouldn't it? This early reverence led to negotiations being opened with the Emperor, and he offered them an accord of peace, declaring his wish for them to be added to the fold of humanity as its industrial war machine, and in return he offered them the freedom to practice their religion and maintain sole control of Mars and the other Forge worlds. Now, to the 40K layman, this may not sound like the craziest deal ever, but coming from the Emperor of Mankind, the most hardcore, scorched earth atheist you could possibly imagine, and he offered to allow the Mechanicus to continue practicing their religion, and on top of that, maintain control of multiple worlds separate from the Imperium's hierarchical control. Yes, this was no shallow offer. Hell, the only addendum the Emperor added was that they weren't allowed to develop AI, and for good reason, given the Men of Iron led to the downfall of humanity. Anyway, after much deliberation, the Mechanicum agreed to the Emperor's terms, and joined the fold of the Imperium of Man. Now, there are a lot of stories after these events involving and revolving around the Toaster Fuckers, but those are best saved for dedicated entries. In general terms, the Mechanicum have not changed much since their alliance with the Imperium, though a few notable figures most certainly emerged over the millennium. Then there's the official formulation of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and not to mention the Dark Mechanicum, but alas, all for dedicated future entries. Anyway, that's it from me, you filthy heretics. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment on what lore you desire next. And remember, for the Imperium, my brothers.